What's up, everyone? It's Chris Schwartz, your host of Fuel, and I am here today with our guest, Jennifer Kauffman. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm great today, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice and chilly here in Philadelphia, and I think you're probably the same up there in Boston, huh?
Yeah, it's 2 degrees today. I'm looking for some sunshine and warm weather.
Oh, nice. You're worse than us. We're in the 20s. Um, so Jennifer comes to us. Jennifer has an amazing, inspiring story, and right now, Jennifer is the CEO of the Rise and Thrive company.
Yes, I am. Yeah, it's a film production company that I created last year during the pandemic. Um, we create transformational films that inspire, encourage, and empower people to rise up from any adversity in life, including the experience of what people are dealing with the pandemic and COVID, and to get themselves to a place where they're thriving and living their best life. So that's what we do. We've launched our first film, There's Got to Be More to Life, and we're going to be starting the second film, which is a sequel called There Is More to Life. And we show people the process and how you can rise up from any adversity in life and truly go on to live your best life. And we talk about how these adversities and traumas that happen in our life actually, it took me 42 years to understand this, are designed to help us cultivate our best versions of ourselves. They're not intended to crush us, although I used to believe that. They are truly designed to help us rise and thrive. And I used an analogy here. It's like when you're planting a seed. What do you plant a seed in?
Right. Dirt.
Dirt,
Yeah.
manure, right?
Right.
So it's, those two things are what make it grow. And what if the adversities in our life and the challenges and the traumas in our life were designed to help pivot us to growth?
I love it. Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to unpack, as we talk pre-show. Fuel is an acronym for Foundations Under Extraordinary Lives. And sometimes those foundations have a few cracks, they're not always super solid. Like life is not perfect. And, sometimes the foundation's a little shaky, right? We've all have events, trauma, things that happen. And right now in this world, I think more than ever, I mean, we're coming up, just on 2 years of this pandemic, and really starting to see, personally myself, firsthand. I mean, we've been very blessed. I'm in a business where, we've been thriving. My business has tripled in the pandemic, and family's been healthy, and but we've been impacted, right? The kids aren't doing the things that they normally get to do. They're not having those experiences that we got to have as children. And it was just rolling. And now I think you're starting to see, you're talking with certain people about the mental health of their children, and, this, and it's like, whoa, this, excuse my French, this shit is real. Like, I've taught, and I was just kind of like, we were very blessed. Sometimes I feel guilty, sharing that, but, you know, as now, people are starting to get out and hopefully, get back to normal life, whatever that looks like in this world. I'm having conversations with more people about the impact on their marriage, their family health, their children's health. So we are at a time now where what you're doing with Rise and Thrive is needed more than ever. So I'm just really grateful to have you on the podcast. I will say, I don't know if I missed it or what, but I was only able to watch the teaser. I didn't have my code and get to watch the whole clip, but it was definitely just the teaser and the trailer, super powerful. So I look forward to to watching the rest of the video that you had out there. And you didn't get to where you are by chance, right? You had definitely something very traumatic happening in your life and your journey. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey and experiences that led you to become the CEO of Rise and Thrive. You also we don't want to downplay all the things you've done. You're a best-selling author, you're a motivational coach, all of these things that you're doing. What inspired you and how did you get to where you are today?
What inspired me was I was in search of more. So let me give you a little bit of backstory so you understand how I got to where I am today. I actually had childhood trauma that I didn't know how to deal with. Obviously, most children don't know how to deal with it. I grew up in the 70s, and it's just something that you put aside, right? You just didn't deal with it. And fast forward, what I did was I used um, my academics in college and work to basically run away from the things that I had shame about, I had confusion about, I had um, a lot of upset about. And so I drowned myself into my studies, and I drowned myself into my work. Now, as a result, I had successes in that, right? But every time I would reach a success or a goal that I had set out, I would have momentary lapse of happiness. I never felt fulfilled. So I've been in search of more. Like, There's Got to Be More to Life, which is the name of the first film that we just released in December, is like, seriously, there has to be more to life. And this was a constant question I asked. Um, Fast forward, I had a traumatic brain injury in my mid 20s. My dad had passed away very unexpectedly when I turned 30. He and I had been estranged from one another for 10 years. We had just reconciled.
Ugh,
And then fast forward again, at the age of 42, I'm standing 15 feet from the first of two explosions at the Boston Marathon bombings.
wow. Oh
And
my
excuse my French, but I'm like, WTF? What? Like, I don't understand.
yeah,
I viewed myself as a good person, a law-abiding citizen, always striving to do good and to be my best and to help people, right? That's always been my nature. Um, but I want to share something with you because the most pivotal moment for me was learning how to heal from the bombings that took place back in 2013. That broke me open. It literally, that experience shattered my world. And I want to share, just before that happened in 2012, I had come off my best year in business. All of my clients had record breaking years. I had taken a couple of months sabbatical just to celebrate and have some
yeah,
fun. I signed my
good.
first publishing deal, and then that happened. I didn't understand it. And I think a lot of people today are also kind of in a similar spot. It's coming up on 2 years. We were told it would take, what, 15 days to slow the spread?
Right. Yeah.
And we're 2 years in now. My point is this, and I literally was talking to a friend of mine who said, it's been really challenging the last couple of months because children in his life are contemplating suicide because they're overwhelmed
Sure.
by their mental health stuff that's going on. So what I'm about to share next, I believe, is a pivotal point, and it takes some time to digest, and it takes some time to embrace it. But it's what I've learned for myself. Before the bombings took place, and when I reflected back on some of the traumas that I had, I was coming from the perspective um, that these things were happening to me. Like, in other words,
Sure.
they were,
Victim.
against me, and I was a victim. Even though I
Yeah.
didn't view myself as a victim, the truth is I had victim mentality. What happened about 6 months after the bombings took place, one of my meditation teachers who I'd been studying under for a couple of years had said to me, "Someday you're going to see this as the greatest gift of your life."
Mm.
And I remember being so upset. I'm like, "Do you not have a clue? I had physical injuries, mental, emotional, you name it. I was affected on every level."
Jeez.
And I went home that night. And even though I was upset by the words that she spoke, I knew she didn't have a malice bone in her body.
Right.
And she planted a seed, even though I didn't understand it at the time. And even though I was frankly resisting it, she planted a seed. And that seed over time got me to a place where I was curious. And that curiosity led to a series of questions. What if? What if this were happening for me rather than to me?
Right.
That shifted everything for me because when I shifted from it's happening for me, I had a sense of empowerment. Oh, okay. And then it led me down to so then what good is coming from this? Because, and I'll tell you, in the beginning, I couldn't see any good.
Sure.
All I could see was the bad. All I could see was that. And it took time to contemplate, well, what good came from it? Over time, I was able to see, wow, complete strangers came to my aid. Complete strangers sent notes, of prayers and love and support. I got gifts. There was all sorts of amazing things that did come from that. And I think that's the perspective here is if we can teach people, young people, adults alike. Now, I'm not saying it's not a scary time for people because I know that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, hard to, in the moment, be able to say, oh, this is, where's the good in this? Because you're so overwhelmed. I imagine that was just, one of the hardest things to do with such a traumatic experience. And, I've read, some of the stuff. I mean, you couldn't sleep, couldn't get out of bed, just, your whole body was just out of sync. And to be able to make that mindset shift to this is happening for me. I think that's a really hard thing for many people to do. And if you're listening, and I think during these times, that's something that really, I've said this to my wife because there are times where we're just like, these poor kids. And, for me, I'm 42, my wife's 42. We're like, hey, you know what? If we had a crazy 2 years of this nonsense, then, it sucked, but it's 2 years. But you know what? It's not my college graduation. It's not my high school prom. It's not, all of these major life. Like I'm just 42 going through the days of, oh shit, we can't go on vacation and I can work from home. And it's not to me as, traumatic as so we feel for the kids. Right. And we look and, but I've said to my wife, like, man, think of, trying to kind of do exactly what you said. How resilient are these kids going to be from going through this? And man, once the dust settles, these kids are going to be able to handle anything. They've gone through 2 years of such just trauma. And so it's kind of a little light bulb with what you're saying went off. And it's like, hey, what if, this is happening for them? And I didn't have it phrased like that, but to use your words. So I love that you just shared that, because one of the cool things about the Fuel podcast and my fuel is to get these little nuggets from my guests that actually selfishly I'm using in my life. And I'm like, oh, cool. So, but for people listening, I think that, as we go through and, have gone through the last 2 years of this pandemic in whatever way it's touched you, to just stop, as Jennifer said, and think, what if this is happening for me? And what can you do with that? I think that
Can I share a quick story with you that I think will illustrate this? And this just actually happened in my own personal life.
absolutely.
So, so a woman that I used to work with, a friend of mine, many many years ago, we worked in the banking industry back in the when I was in my early 20s, and we reconnected about a year ago through a mutual friend's mother's birthday, and it was great to see her and reconnect. And she turned 50 last year, and she dropped dead suddenly
Oh my goodness.
in September, a couple of days after her 26th wedding anniversary, and with no warning, no indication. For all we knew, she was healthy and well, but she had been dealing with a lot of stress because her husband had been diagnosed with a brain tumor that was inoperable and incurable, and he was given months to live. So
Jeez.
here they have two kids. They're in the midst of a pandemic, right? And just imagine all of that they're going through. So she literally dropped dead of an aneurysm,
Oh my goodness.
completely shocked everyone. And her two sons became the caregiver to their dad, right? And it's going to make me emotional now just talking about it.
Oh,
And their dad
yeah.
just passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my goodness.
I can't even begin to imagine what life is like for them at this time.
No.
To lose two parents in a matter of months, and they're like 18, 19, and early 20s, right?
Yeah.
And what I had to remind myself and remind some of our close friends is that these things happen. They're out of our control. And it's sad. And it doesn't take away from the sadness and doesn't take away from the grief. And what I witnessed was how many people came out from the community to help these two young men, whatever they need. And
Right.
so even in the midst of our darkest days and our most traumatic times, and it's not to take away the pain. That's not what this is about. But there is good even in bad situations. And when we can start to train our brain. Now, for me, in my own experience, I liken it to going to the gym. It didn't happen like that. I
Sure.
had to train my brain every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, to go, okay, what good came from this? Because when I would pause and say what good came from, like, and this usually happened when I would have an upset, like I would start to experience rage in my healing or start to experience profound sadness. Like my life was shattered. Life
Yeah.
as I knew it was over. And by the way, a lot of people here today are feeling the very same way. They didn't have a bomb go off, a literal bomb. They had a different kind of quote unquote bomb. They might
Sure.
have lost their job, they might have lost a loved one, they might have, whatever. But it's the key is like, if when we can pivot and get our mind to think, we create new neural pathways. So now over time, it's easier for me. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's
Sure.
easier for me to go, right, what's good coming from this? Oh, right. Like and it might be strengthening my resiliency or giving me the courage to step out in a way that I might not otherwise do. I never used Zoom other than for a few, minor meetings before the pandemic happened. I
Sure.
was a face-to-face person.
Yep.
Well, guess
Here we
what?
are.
Had to pivot.
Right.
Right? Sometimes, and now I'm grateful because now I'm able to meet people like you, Chris, and
Yeah.
from all other parts of the world that I otherwise wouldn't have met as easily.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely powerful when you look. And I guess one of the things I'll ask, because you seem to have a really good grasp on this, because it's easy, right? It's easy for you and I to talk about this, and but when something as traumatic happens as what you just described with your friend, and those two boys are dealing with that, it's a lot different to say, to just flip a switch, right? And say, well, what good came? I mean, you just literally lost both of your parents. How do you kind of like you can think that, hey, I need to do this, but how do you snap out of it? How do you kind of like shake yourself internally when you're not able to flip the switch and say, hey, I know I should be thinking what good came from this, but I just lost both my parents. There's no effing good in this. Like, and you get that kind of mindset. How do you shake that?
I see it in stages, Chris, right? So, first of all, you can't negate the feelings and the emotions. That has to come up and be expressed. You can't pretend like it didn't happen, and you can't just put it aside and say, "Oh yeah, that, whatever." That's not what I'm saying. It's like, okay, allow those emotions to come up, but don't dwell on them. Don't hang on them. right?
Right.
And just allow it to, and I liken it like this. And it's going to sound a little crass here, but it's a beautiful metaphor. When you feel ill, you don't swallow your own vomit. At least I don't know anyone that has,
Right. Hopefully not.
right? You actually let it out. So when you're feeling sad, give yourself permission to be sad. When you're feeling upset, give yourself permission to be upset. Now, I interviewed Christy Whitman in my book, in my film, There's Got to Be More to Life. And she talks about that it takes on average 90 seconds to have an emotion shift up and out of our body. It's just a wave of energy. What people often do, like myself, candidly, is we resist it because it doesn't feel good, and we don't want to feel those not so good feelings. So what do we tend to do? We numb it
Right.
or suppress it. But the key here is to give yourself permission to allow those emotions to come up. And then when you and it's a trick, right? It's like a mind hack, is to be a witness to it rather than to feel like you're stuck in it or in a victim mode, right?
Right.
It's like, and the only other way I can use this as analogy, and this is one of the tricks I did early on. I don't have children of my own, but I have two nieces that are like my kids.
Yep.
When I would have difficulty shifting it for myself, what I would do is I'd think of my nieces. If they were feeling the way I was feeling, what would I want to do to them? How would what I want to console them and nurture them? And whatever my answer was, I would do to myself. I'd
Hmm.
give them a hug.
Right.
I tell them that it's okay, that this will pass over time and it's okay. So it's not to negate the real emotions and feelings, but once you allow that to pass through you, then you can go, what good did come from this? And I'm going to tell you, in the beginning, I didn't get anything but the bad things. And
Right.
then once over time, I kept asking myself that question. It went from the bad things would come to the surface, then I would get nothing, just kind of like dead space, right? And then
Right.
over time, I'd be like, oh, right, I forgot so and so reached out and gifted me, an opportunity to have this experience that actually helped with my healing.
Sure.
Oh, right. So and so introduced me to so and so, right? All of a sudden, I became more aware. And so it's a process, folks. It is not a flip of the switch. But the
Right.
more that we can do that, the other thing that is so powerful is being grateful. I think one of the hardest lessons I've learned, and I'm still learning to this day, I haven't mastered it, is being grateful for the challenging times.
Right.
It's easy to be grateful when things are going great,
Sure. Yeah. It's
but
easy.
to be grateful for, wow, I'm grateful for the struggle I have right now, because
Yeah.
that struggle is teaching me to go deeper within myself. Because the truth is, we have all of the resources within ourselves, but we tend to live in a society that's outwardly focused. And this has taken me a number of years to, whenever I feel out of balance, rather than look outside of myself for the answers, to take a pause and take a step back. Maybe it's
Right.
doing more meditation, but more inner reflection, because the truth is, we have the resources within us. We just have to tap into them.
I love that. Yeah. And that's, exactly what fuel is about. It's kind of tapping into what we call the foundation that your life is built on, right? Those things are there. And without those experiences, I mean, would it be fair to say you wouldn't be the CEO of Rise and Thrive
I
Production?
wouldn't.
You wouldn't,
I
have,
wouldn't. It wasn't anywhere on my radar.
right.
Doing filming was not in my business plan. My background is in investments and finance, and then I started my own business coaching and business consulting business back in 2007.
Right.
This wasn't on my radar, but yet, through my journey and experience, I realized one of the fastest ways to get an inspiring and transformational message out into the world is through film.
Yep.
Books is another great way. Talks are another great way. And those are all valuable, and podcasts are another great way because you can get the message out in short sound bites to people.
Yeah.
And then those that are meant to hear it. And then, they can do whatever they want with it. Everybody's on their own journey, but I'm grateful for shows like you, Chris, because I still have struggles in my life. I still listen, without contrast, we don't know what it's like to grow and expand. And it's
Exactly.
uncomfortable. But when
Yeah.
we get pushed outside of our comfort zone, we grow. And when we grow and get to that other side, we have such appreciation. I'm in awe, actually in awe of what I've been able to accomplish in the last couple of years. And it all came out of, rising up from my experience from terrorism.
It's crazy. Yeah. And like you said, in that moment, life was shattered, just as your video, right? It was totally shattered. And now, you're thriving. I mean, just looking at all this stuff, and we have only just met. A mutual friend introduced us. Um, and just doing my pre-show homework and reading this, different things that you've gone through and the accomplishments that you've had. It's so exciting to see people, taking their experiences, and it's not always trauma. I mean, some people, they have positive experiences that also build, but to see how people use whatever those experiences are to just, rise and thrive, to use your, your
Yeah.
company there. It's so exciting. So I mean, I'm so grateful that Ginger, our mutual friend, introduced us, and I look forward to, truly consuming some of your content, through the books and watching the video. So it's just so fun to connect with people, and hopefully, inspire some other people, because part of what I do is I am in the mortgage space. I own a mortgage company, which is, kind of my day to day. But what's more exciting is this journey on Fuel, and meeting people, and hearing their stories, and seeing where this takes me. And I'm just going to guess that your finance job and your previous quote unquote life was not as exciting as what you're doing now, right? Like, you're
I
living in a dream.
feel I literally am living the dream, Chris. Like, pinch me every day. I get to connect with people like you. I get to meet amazing people that are doing extraordinary things. And by the way, I, anybody can do this. I want to say this, like, we sometimes, have this, we put people on the pedestal, and I know I used to do this, but the truth is, it's a choice. We can choose to create the life that we want. It takes courage to do that, and it takes, um, people, a small group of people that can be your biggest cheerleaders, and you've got to become your biggest cheerleader too, right? Because
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
easy. But I will tell you, I feel the most alive I've ever felt. I have the most peace I've ever felt, and I actually feel fulfilled and on purpose.
That's awesome.
It doesn't mean I don't have challenges, because we
Right.
all have challenges. As we're growing and evolving, that is always going to be part of the equation. But
Yeah.
I feel I just like I get to meet amazing people like you and get to hear about the amazing things that you're doing and how you're thriving in the mortgage industry. People think like, how is anyone thriving in the pandemic? It's
Sure.
possible, folks.
Yeah, no,
It's
absolutely.
possible.
And you and I are connected to show that it's even more possible, right? You're in Boston, I'm in Philadelphia. We're having an amazing conversation, and it's not anything but us sitting in our, I have the nice background here, but I'm in my home office, and so it's more possible than ever with technology and the resources that we have at our fingertips nowadays.
It's so affordable and economical. Like, okay, you need a computer, a Zoom, and internet. And you could start a
Right.
business. You could literally start a business for hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. And you can,
Literally.
you know,
When I started my business in 2007, I seeded it with $150,000.
yeah.
You don't have to do that today, folks.
Right. Yeah, it's like $10,000 to build a website, and the high tech phone system that is a couple of grand, and all that stuff is pennies now. You can go onto any of these platforms, build your website in an hour, upload some images, add a shopping cart, and boom, your e-commerce site or your whatever it is done. So I think the opportunities, and just as much as there are different challenges today than there were in the past, there's also opportunities to thrive and to just really live your dream that didn't exist even 10 years ago. It's things are evolving so fast, that is really giving us so many opportunities. So I'm so grateful to see, and hear these stories, and just really thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And as we're coming up on time here, I just want to make sure that we get everybody the opportunity to find all this good stuff that you have out there. So Jennifer, if somebody wants to watch one of the videos, I know you have some content out there. How do they connect with you, and where can we find some of the videos, and talk about your book as well?
So there's two places they can go. One is my personal site, jenniferkaufman.com, and
Okay.
you'll get access to the movie trailer. You can get a link from there to actually go watch the film if you want. Those that want to watch the film, we're giving away some really exciting bonuses. A receiving meditation, which will help you open up to receive more in life. We're giving an ebook on thriving, but more importantly, for every purchase of the film, we are gifting $2 of each movie ticket purchase to save a veteran's life for the
Oh,
month of February and month of March. So if anyone wants to be inspired by the film, but more importantly, give back, go ahead. You can either go to my website, jenniferkaufman.com, or there's got to be more to life.com to watch the film. You can also have access to my books. I've been featured in a book with Jack Canfield. I've written a couple of my own books, Shattered and hashtag Be Courageous. And all of that information is available on my website. You can learn more, and there's free resources there too.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with us. And if you're listening, go out there, grab some of this stuff. There's a ton of content there for you. Some, even some free nuggets. And if you can grab some of the other stuff and support the veterans, that's awesome as well. So kudos to you for that. I love it. And so now, as we wrap up the show, we're gonna do our three simple rapid fire questions. So these are fun. We talked about a lot of heavy stuff. We kind of at the end like to break it up, and this is just so here's the setting. So you're somehow you've ended up on an island, and you're trapped. You're going to be there for a while. We're going to ask you three questions, and the first one is, we're going to throw the disclaimer out there that we know you'd take friends, family, loved ones, but who would you take if you could pick one person, celebrity, living, past, current, doesn't matter. Who would you take if you could take one person on this island, and why?
I'd take my mom.
All right.
Actually, I would take my mom, and I would take my mom because she taught me resilience, and she has taught me how to rely on my own inner strength and to rise up at times that I didn't think I could. She's been my biggest cheerleader, my biggest fan, and in a crunch or challenging situation, I'd want her by my side.
Love it. Kudos to mom. She's coming with you. So, all right. And the second one is, what's a book that you would have to have with you that's had an impact on your life? And we know you have your book out there, so of course that's coming. But what is one book, if you can narrow it down, that's had an impact that you'd like to share?
Gosh, there are several books, but the first one that comes to mind, which is something I study, I'm actually in the midst of studying again, is The Science of Getting Rich.
Okay.
And that, and by Waddles, and Napoleon Hill's book as well. Because I do believe that everybody, without having wealth in our lives, we can't do the things that we're meant to do and give back the way that we are meant to give back. So that has been a pivotal book for me over the years. When I've gone into some financial challenges and situations, right, is to be reminded and to go back to some of those principles. And the key is the thought, the gratitude, be in action, and always give value that is going to increase that of another person.
I love that. Definitely have to check that one out. I haven't read that one. So, and I love all Napoleon Hill stuff as well. So I'll have to check it out. And last but not least, what's your favorite food, guilty pleasure, fun food that you have to have on this island?
Lobster,
Nice.
lobster, lobster, lobster.
All right. Good deal. I have to say, I agree. And so we just had, it's Valentine's Day here, and my wife spoiled me. And she has there's this site, you may have heard of it. We'll give them a little plug for whatever it is, but Gold Belly
I
is
have not heard of it.
okay. So Gold Belly, you definitely have to have, a Gold Belly, I guess, if you want this stuff, but you can get anything from anywhere. And it literally, like, they fly it overnight with all the dry ice and everything. So my wife knows that I'm a huge, like, lobster rolls, like really good, not these ones that you get at some of these places, like the real deal. So she surprised me with the lobster rolls from Maine with the whole, little kit. And I mean, these things, they flew on an airplane, they left the shop in the morning, and they were here like the next day. Gold Belly is crazy. You can get food from anywhere.
Oh,
You can get cheesesteaks from Philadelphia, right to you in Boston. You can get Chicago style pizza, just anything crazy, cupcakes from the crazy. So lobster is definitely up there for me. And, that's my little spiel on Gold Belly
well,
and
thank you for
lobster.
sharing that tidbit because I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go search them ASAP.
Yeah, you'll definitely. I mean, it's a treat. So, well, Jennifer, thank you so much again, and for everybody listening, if you got something out of this episode, please share it with your friends, family, anyone out there. Share it on social. Give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. And on that note, we're out.